Hello and welcome to the Pretentious show. I'm Alexander Devenport. Take your basic modern history class, add a philosophy for a good body of smugness, now add music and drama, then stir until the subjects are firmly up their own arses. Now drizzle with illegal drugs and alcohol, and bake until all absolute concepts are subjective. Congratulations, you have contemporary art, the most complicated subject in the entire universe. So when you're studying it in university, you want the whole thing explained to you in one big swoop. Oh! But no, I have no time to read this! I'm an art student! I'm too busy drinking, having sex, and writing poetry underneath the apple tree to read books. I need a TV series with a nice generic title and entertaining presenter. I need This is Modern Art. Art students find a number of popular art heroes to look up to. For a long time, Sister Wendy and Robert Hughes have all been looked up to in the popular mass media. However, for the past 10 years, Matthew Collings has been the popular face of modern art teachings due to his documentary aimed at pop culture majority in 1999. This is Modern Art was named in a half-ironic way because no one really can describe what modern art is. But the program seemed to sum up what modern art was in only 6 weeks. Thus, subjects were explored such as irony.
Around £30,000 a can. So this is nearly £1 million worth of the shit of an artist.
Shocks.
I was shocked when the Sex Pistols came out. I still can't really get over it.
And, well, nothing.
And it's now preserved forever here in this museum in Germany. But what is it exactly? Hello, little girl. What do you see here?
Nothing. Nothing at all is in here.
All of a sudden, contemporary art became fun as you laughed at Matthew Collings' sarcasm.
Boxes live on. There's a classic one coming up right now. Well, not right now, but after this stylish chair. Here it is. Wow.
And the absurdity of the artwork as if he's saying, yeah, I know it's rubbish, but I'm in on a joke. And you know what? It's funny.
And a sphere seemed like the most obvious shape. It's equal in all directions, and I like the fact that it disappears when you put it in the world. But if you look at it closely, it's quite a, well, it's a reasonably well-made sphere.
It's not. It's a screwed up piece of paper.
Oh, by the way, that guy won the Turner Prize in 2001. Want to see the artwork? Okay. Well, like it? No. What do you think, Andy? I know.
Nothing's happening.
It's also in this year of 2000 or 2002 or somewhere in that area that I myself got the concept of direct plagiarism as a form of artwork itself. And this was done by the artist Glenn Brown.
My reasons for using other people's work was not just to take the piss out of them, or not really to talk about sort of reproduction or appropriation per se. I was talking about my take on the world. And in using sort of found images, I'm just dealing with sort of a contemporary landscape. It's nothing more than that.
He directly copied other artworks from other artists, like this science fiction illustration, and of course of this portrait. In the past, I would have shouted out at Glenn Brown's work if it wasn't for the way the concept was explained to me. And this was through an episode of Blankness in Art. Not just the art of minimalism, but the icy cold stare of postmodern blankness explaining that the world is actually repetitive and dead, so copying other people's artwork is in fact quite acceptable, as it is also a statement of authority or copyright sacredness.
You know, you can't tell from a little, TV screen like that his painting is very big, and the science fiction illustration is like 6 inches across. What's the problem? Yeah, it's obvious it's not the same thing.
So plagiarism doesn't exist except unless you do it the same scale.
That's right.
Or perhaps artists like Glenn Brown just wanted to see conceptual art turn in on itself like a black hole in order to try and destroy the very fabric of art academia. Or at least that's what I tried to do during my art college years. You see, postmodern art just seemed so cool at the time, particularly for younger generations of artists. I made artwork such as oil-painted movie posters, chocolate box landscape art, and my favourite, illustrative DeviantArt.com installation of 12 Doctor Who portraits. I really need to update that. But don't you think that's absurd? As a young art student, I concentrated on the irony and the confusion that art had to offer, and not the aesthetics at all. Is beauty really that boring? There was an episode on beauty which I found to be really important because it proves that beauty is still apparent in contemporary art. But the aesthetic qualities tend to change throughout the generations.
I like Olitsky's stoked-up, iridescent beauty. But how strange it is, without the framework of attitudes and ideas that make us up at different times. It's called the zeitgeist, the time spirit now artificially frozen inside this metal shed. The zeitgeist is what makes us feel in tune with art, or if it suddenly changes and there's a new zeitgeist, out of tune.
Pay attention.
Did he just tell me to pay attention? Wow, this is embarrassing. But does this mean he actually knows his audience? I guess it does. I mean, no, I can't. I fail to believe that. We can't be that predictable. I mean, like we need to be woken up by exciting things like sex and explosions. I mean, I just refuse to accept this. I mean, I have a certain sense of dignity that I... Ah! Jeff Goon's giant flower puppy! Sorry about that. I just wanted to try out the special effects and the prop gun. Yeah, I'm sorry. I won't do that again. Matthew apparently had the most straightforward answers to what seemed like the most impossible questions in art. Yes! This has been a guide for most student artists and an inspiration to most of the art community as well, because it created a popular view upon the subject, and in Great Britain, Matthew Collings became more and more popular. This, however, was not his intention. In 2005, he attended the opening of the Arc Biannual set in Brisbane, Australia, and he said, "Popularizing something had never been my intention." And he described modern art as the hideous, deformed occurrence that has happened in my lifetime, for which I must partly take the blame. So in our pretense of pretending we get it, we speak a lot of rubbish. Reflections reflecting reflections, talk reflecting talk. His most memorable quote was, "We are drowning in postmodernism, and we find it difficult to know what we are doing and what we are." After the talk, he asked if there were any questions, and so a woman was given the microphone who then thanked Matthew Collings for making art more accessible. Well, no one's perfect, as Michel Duchamp would say. Oh, speaking of Duchamp, in case you don't know, we're living in the year 2010, and thus we're only 7 years away from our 100th birthday of Michel Duchamp's 1917 fountain. You know, this thing that spawned the idea of anything being able to be art if the artist says it is. Now, I have no real problem with this. After all, in 1967, Sol LeWitt went further to say that art was actually a concept and not an object at all. But it's been almost 100 years, and it's not that it's very interesting at the moment. Okay, I admit that it is actually interesting with the concept of art lovers looking at the urinal, seeing the transformed semiotics. But irony died as soon as it was born. You can't appreciate it for the face value, and it becomes superficial really, really quickly. There's another element that really needs to be addressed. It's the one of non-art related concepts of postmodernism. And that's the idea of ideologies all having one point. Well, all having a point, you could say. Thus, subconsciously, we're all saying that everyone is right. However, on one day, someone must have been wrong. September 11th was a wake-up call to everyone, saying to us, "Stop being so philosophical." Satires were no longer appreciated. Well, you know, except for those in political art. But even those go out of date really quickly. Want proof? Have a look.
Nice communist girl is the slogan for this picture, painted when the Berlin Wall was still standing.
I don't get it. But there is hope. In 2008, I got blown away by a show called Optimism in Brisbane, Australia. And boy, there is no other word to describe it. Yes, there was a bit of minimalism, and yes, there were parts that were shocking, but wow, none of the works actually patronized the viewer, and it proved that painting wasn't dead. So Britain's view on art should have changed too, right? Right?
And here we are at the Tate Modern, that's right. We get to meet Tracy Emin, Damien Hirst, Jeff Koons, Andy Warhol, and more.
How long are we going to talk about Damien Hirst, shark and formaldehyde? That was 20 years ago, people!
There's a lot of bloody bollocks.
Matthew Collings has released several books since This Is Modern Art came out, and these are called Blimey, Art Crazy Nation, and Matt's Old Masters. All are engaging and are more honest about his feelings towards art in this country. In fact, the last episode of This Is Modern Art reflected how often we repeat things and how the hype of art has become more ridiculous. The biggest subject in this episode was the exhibition Sensation, often confused with the word sensational, thus accidentally creating an art canon sensationalism. So what do you think, artists that were in the show Sensational?
I'm not sure what I think about all the hype stuff. I mean, as far as there has been hype, it hasn't done me any harm. But on the other hand, it annoys me a bit because the people see that as something that artists have somehow contrived for themselves, rather than something that's happened.
I think it's become grotesquely unrepresentative of what people do simply because of the way that it's been presented. And I think there's possibly one or two people in this exhibition for which it fits their the way they work to be presented in this way. I think for a lot of the other people here, it's completely out of their hands.
Well, that's my talk on the TV show This Is Modern Art, and contemporary art in the early 2000s, the good, the bad, and all the ugly. And I want to know, why isn't This Is Modern Art on DVD yet? Matthew, if you're watching, release it. Just do it. And if you hate the series, and you've said that you do, just go over the film with your commentary. I would watch it, that would be hilarious. And anyone who would buy the DVD would be the sort of person that would listen to the commentary. In fact, I've contacted Channel 4 myself to see exactly why the show hasn't been released onto DVD yet. And I should more or less be receiving a phone call and Aha! Matthew Collings? Yes, hi! Look, I just wanted to be the sort of person that would ask you, why hasn't the show been released onto DVD yet? Have you given any thoughts onto the subject? Yeah? Really? Really? Oh, wow! That's cool. Oh, well, thank you so much for that. You've really cleared everything up for me. All right, take care. Bye-bye. Wrong number. Today's episode of The Pretentious Show has been brought to you by Colonel J. Fizzywig's Vaporizer Pistol. Colonel J. Fizzywig's Vaporizer Pistol, it's a gun that goes BOOM!